You're back from balmy Germany.
Yeah, it has been a busy month or two. I can't even remember when the last time we did one of these was. I know we got together personally not too long ago. Um, but yeah, man, it has been a trip. Um,
You said it was just a vacation anyways, right?
yeah, I mean, geez, where to begin? So we were running that play test. That went really well, but it's always a hectic time, right? You got hundreds of people playing the game, leaving really detailed feedback, right? We've got a super passionate audience. That's fantastic. But just parsing all that feedback, taking time to digest it, looking out to other various sites, because, right, we try and get a lot of the feedback together on Discord, and we have that form that you can fill out in the game.
Yeah.
But also, right, people are playing it and then they're leaving feedback on Reddit, on Twitter, on some of the right RPG message boards out there, right? RPG Codex, Tavern RPG, RPG Watchtower, right? There's a whole bunch of those that we kind of monitor too, right? Steam community, of course. So just trying to get all that feedback together, internalize it a little bit, think about it, make any changes that we can, that we think makes sense, and then launching the demo, using all that feedback. I mean, obviously, it made the game better. It always does. It's always really good feedback. Um, but it's a lot to go through and a lot of work to do in a short period of time to really, right, make those changes while they're fresh and put them back out for people to test so they can see, right, like here's the changes we made and how do you feel about this? And
Yeah.
right, some of that, iteration is exhausting at times.
It's really tricky because you want to take everybody's feedback. You want, but sometimes I hate to say it, but for lack of a better phrase, there are a lot of players that don't really know what's fun, right? They'll tell you what's important to them, and but if you actually did what they're saying is important to them, it would be a worse game.
Right, like we can't please everybody, and we said that from the beginning, that right, like we have a vision, we know what we're trying to make. We want to be clear about how we communicate what that is, right? So that we're not over promising and under delivering. We're not, right, promising something that we have no intention of making. Right. The reality is that this is a dialogue driven, non-combat, very inspired by Disco Elysium, Arcanum sort of, game. And so, no, it doesn't have the super deep tactical turn-based combat that you're seeing in the, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous or Divinity Original Sin 2. It's not that game, right? It's not going to be.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the feedback, but you're right in that sometimes it just doesn't align with what we're trying to make. So, right, we have to be the arbiters of that feedback and decide, is this something, is this a valuable piece of feedback that we're going to use to guide our development processes, right? Sometimes it can be used for purposes other than that, right? Okay, did we communicate the product properly? If somebody went into the game thinking that it was going to be a deep tactical turn-based game, we miscommunicated. And
Mhm.
we need to look at, right, what are we saying? Where are we saying it? How did we contribute to the perception that it was going to be something that it's not?
Yeah.
Um, so we can refine our messaging and even use it to better direct our marketing activities and things like that. Um, right? We can use the feedback for those purposes, and it still has value there. But no, we don't use that feedback to guide development efforts, right? If I get somebody
Mhm.
who's frustrated that the game isn't those things, hey, you need turn-based combat in this game.
Yeah.
I appreciate your feedback, but that's not what we're making.
Great
So,
feedback, but no.
yeah,
To be fair to folks out there, I mean, some of that is going to be a little bit of a failing on our part because this is a lot like the guy who's doing a sculpture out of a log, he doesn't really know what it's going to look like until it's done. Because when we started off, a lot of the things that we were saying we're going and looking at all the games that inspired us, right? The Baldur's Gates, the Fallouts, the Planescape Torment, all of these sorts of things. And a lot of those games have a tactical combat system, right?
Yeah.
At the time, we wanted that to be there. And was there unlimited money, then maybe it would be,
Yeah.
right? But a
Yeah.
lot of those decisions, had to be made along the way, right? To figure out what is this game actually going to be, and the team is so much closer to what it's actually going to be now, right?
Yeah.
That it's
Yeah.
really narrowed in focus.
Yeah. Right. Like
Very well.
we still want to make a game like that one day. This just isn't that game. Right. I hope that the studio grows and our skills grow and our team grows to allow us to do justice to a game like that. Right. Like we talked about a few elements that would be nice to haves in the current game or would have been nice to haves had we been further along as a studio and had more reliable funding, or had we been able to count on the funding that we ended up receiving. Right? People ask for things like turn-based combat or a character creator. And I would have loved to have done, a really robust character creator, but I didn't feel like we could do justice to those two things with the constraints that we had, the budget that we had. I still want to do a game that does justice to those things. It's just not this game.
Yep. Yep. So overall, how did the playtest do, and how is the demo doing? Like from a numbers standpoint, I know you were talking in Discord about how many people were in the playtest, and those numbers were looking really, really good. And I assume that the demo is going to be fairly similar.
Yeah, right. We had over 1,000 people play the playtest. A lot of people from the last one that we ran, and then also obviously some new people. So we got a lot of repeat players, which is good, who could assess where we were and where we are. And then we got a lot of new players who were assessing it for the first time, who could just tell us what they thought sort of blindly, which is really nice. I think if you look back at our Steam announcements after the first playtest on what we were going to work on, right? The feedback that we gleaned from that cycle and what we were going to work on to make the game better, I think we really hit the brief on all of those points that we sorted out a few months ago and said, thank you so much for your feedback. Here's what we're going to do. We did all those things.
Yep.
So that's great.
Yep. Yeah. Some nice focus on bug fix, some nice focus on UI and just the general playability of everything. And then, of course, adding some more content to it as well. So it's a much more robust, it's not just the single path situation anymore, right?
Yeah, right. Tarot cards, right? Really developing the tarot card mechanic. We've come a long way there. You're right. New content, a finer approach to our narrative, better association of things like character development, experience gaining, the level up mechanic, humors and tarot cards and all that stuff is a lot more cohesive than it was. I still think we have some work to do in terms of how we explain the tarot card mechanic to new players. I think it delivers what we want once people understand it, but it's been pretty apparent from some of the reviews and just some of the user feedback that we still have some work to do there, whether that's in tutorialization or just additional tooltips and UI and layout choices and things like that. There's more work we can do there to make it feel more intuitive. Obviously, we're still working on it. It's always a work in progress, but I feel really happy about how far we've come.
Yeah. And that's just going to be a function of doing something a little bit different, right? I mean, if everything was going back to a dice roll sort of game, everybody already understands dice. They don't need to think about it, one way or another. And this is flipping it a little bit on its head, to add something new to it. But as far as the demo goes now, do we have numbers on how many people are in there? And
right. So we launched the demo as part of our participation in DevCom and Gamescom. Obviously, we took the players' playtest feedback, polished up what our playtest had been. That was the intended scope of the demo, was what we were showing for the playtest. And we had, last time I looked, we had about 4,000 downloads. It's only been about a week since we put it up. So 4,000 downloads, a little over 600 players, I think, so far. Really going to have to wait for another weekend here. Obviously, a lot of people play on the weekend, but I think that's a really good, considering we're still sitting at about 16,000 wish lists, to have, 25% of those people go out and get the demo right away, and a good chunk of those people play it right away, is really positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's diminishing returns on every time you've got that kind of a thing there, right? The number of wish lists versus the number of demos versus the number of eventual sales, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a very interesting situation. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. I know it's been a busy time for the developers, and then there was, after the demo was done, then there was like a quiet week where there wasn't a whole lot that was going on. Then all of a sudden it was back into regular development again, and there were updates flying, and concept art floating around, new NPCs and new areas and all kinds of stuff. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, that's been really exciting too. Was we made the decision to participate in Gamescom, so there was a lot of work going on to finish the demo. Obviously, you're showing it to thousands of people during Gamescom. You want it to be as good as it can be. We got some new trailers, right? We commissioned a couple of new trailers, obviously, right, as part of the Steam page refresh and our marketing efforts around Gamescom and releasing the demo. We wanted a couple of new gameplay trailers to really show off all the new work that we've done. And then, of course, all the actual preparation for presenting online at Gamescom and DevCom, right? So getting all the exhibitor profiles set up, the Gamescom Now profile, the DevCom. We got selected for the NRW Indie Expo, so getting all of our collateral set up for the Indie Expo, presenting as part of that festival. That was a lot of administrative work, a lot of work behind the scenes to really get going there. Booking travel arrangements and stuff like that, because I went out to Germany to go check it out. We weren't exhibiting in person, but we've never really done a festival before, so I thought it was a good opportunity to show online and then to go out and see everything, and see if, how much value there would be in doing it in person and doing the booth and all that stuff next year, if that was something that we wanted to do. So obviously just a lot of legwork to get all that stuff done. And then, yeah, it was also really exciting to kick off some new content, right? Like, you get into this really defined scope around doing something like a demo. You play the demo over and over and over and over and over again, and you get feedback from people on the same little things over and over and over and over as you continue to polish and refine. And it's great at making that part of the product better, but it's also really refreshing to just jump into some new content, right? Get some new characters going, get some new environments going, think about where the game's going after the demo scope. Has been really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll probably cut this one here, but I think it will be interesting to show people some of that additional new content, as we move into the future. So
yeah, 100%.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.